Hello and welcome to Digital Nation. We're about to take you on a trip around the UK with the help of our local TV channels. In this week's show, we go on an illuminating trip to Leeds. We discover some amazing hidden architectural heritage in Birmingham. And we'll relive our youth with an iconic toy on the model racetrack in Havant. And don't forget, you can contact us by using the hashtag #DigitalNation. Our first visit this week is to Glasgow, where a brand new venue has opened up dedicated to the moving image. Previously used by professional filmmakers and academics, the new collection includes objects from the National Library and features curiosities associated with the history of cinema.
Today we're opening a brand new venue in the centre of Glasgow at Kelvin Hall. We're really excited because it brings together National Library of Scotland digital collections with the Moving Image Archive as well. Moving Image Archive used to be based in an industrial estate in Hillington, and the people that used their archive tended to be professional researchers, producers, cinema exhibitors, and also academic researchers. But now we're at Kelvin Hall. We've got a brand new visitor centre. It's open for anyone and everyone to come and enjoy our collections. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about it and the kind of material that we have for you to enjoy. We've brought together facsimile copies from our collections in the National Library, together with film collections from the Moving Image Archive, and also real objects and books from the National Library General Collections as well. It's a really exciting space to be in because you can actually discover things for yourself. So here we have these cabinets of curiosity. This displays about sport and football. One of my favourite display cases is this one here because it has the membership badges from the children's matinee clubs. Again, something that people of a certain generation have fond memories of. One of the films that we look after in our archive is Seaward's The Great Ships, which was an award-winning film produced in around 1960-1961 by the famous documentarian John Grierson. And we have a replica Oscar that was collected for, it was the best short subject live action film. And so we call it Scotland's first documentary Oscar.
Our Moving Image Archive, which came to us about 10 years ago, has always needed a much more high-profile destination and space. What we're offering is a whole set of services that will be, I think, different. They'll be distinctive and they'll be special for the people of Glasgow.
To Cambridge now, and it's 1066. Harold's army are making their way down from York to Hastings to fight the Normans. Actually, no, it's 950 years later, and a group of reenactors are wending their weary way south to help English heritage celebrate the event. I bet that chainmail chafes a bit.
Harold's English army was in high spirits after defeating the Vikings at Stamford Bridge, but then his weary warriors had to trudge all the way down south to face off the Normans on the Hastings battlefield.
And with me now is the leader, Nigel. So Nigel, what's it been like for you and how does it compare to what Harold's army went through at the time?
Well, we know very little about the route from York, because he probably would have gone down to Battle Abbey. We don't know the route he took. We can guess that he would have taken the Roman road that went from London to Lincoln and up to York. That makes perfect sense. Of course, for him and his professional troops, they would all have been mounted and they would have moved on fairly fast. I suspect he would have done about 25 to 30 miles a day quite easily. You have this kind of English consciousness of the Saxon yeoman trudging down the road. Well, certainly a great deal of those troops would have been, but actually Harold and the vanguard of that army would have been the professional mounted soldiers.
The Battle of Hastings is commemorated every year by hundreds of reenactors on the 14th of October. But for the 950th anniversary, English Heritage decided to show people the other significant bits of 1066. Today the marchers are going past their 200th milestone, but they still have 100 more to go before reaching Hastings and their fate on the battlefield against the Normans.
At the Hull Royal Infirmary, older patients are being helped by a new kind of personal carer. A recreational coordinator is available during the times when they don't have any visitors, or if they just need a little extra attention, such as a nice manicure or a relaxing hair shampoo. Estuary TV went to find out more.
Laura Marks is one of the pioneering few who've taken up a post at Hull Royal Infirmary. She says she spends much of her time with patients who may not have other visitors and making them feel comfortable and fulfilled in their environment.
What I do is I provide a bit of reminiscence therapy for the patients. So even if it's just going around and chatting with them, a lot of patients are sometimes distressed, and we have a lot of patients who do suffer with dementia on the wards. So it's up to me to go and provide a bit of therapy, whether it's nail painting, hand massage. I organise mini exercise sessions. There could be some patients that are actually, they look like they don't want to speak to anybody, but they actually do. But because they maybe don't have any relatives, I always sort of identify, especially in the afternoon when the visiting times are open, I look to see who hasn't got any visitors and I just go over and I'm like, are you all right? And it just sometimes turns out they actually look upset because they haven't got anyone to come and speak to them. So for me going over and just sitting with them, you can actually find out so much information about them and they just want to chat, that's all they want.
Wayne Morrow is the ward manager of Ward 80, where some of the recreational coordinators are working. He says they filled a gap in the hospital, especially in terms of keeping those with dementia entertained.
It's always nice to see a smiley face, do a crossword or do paint the fingernails, wash their hair, just make them feel better about themselves.
Do you want to put those windfall apples strewn over your garden to good use? Well, in Abingdon, near Oxford, an enthusiastic society is encouraging locals who have a glut of cocces or similar to bring them down and have them pulped into healthy apple juice. They'll even bottle the liquid for you.
Residents in Abingdon have come together to gather found fruits in their gardens and share them with the Abingdon Carbon Cutters to produce apple juice. The group have been processing apples together in the town. Richard Howard is an ACC member.
So Abingdon Carbon Cutters is a group operating in the Abingdon area. We're trying to promote sustainable living, the reduction of the use of expensive carbon fuels, and including in that is the aim to reduce food waste. The apples are abundant in this part of the country and indeed in a lot of England. And so in autumn time, apples are part of our life. They're coming off the trees. How are we to use them best? Well, it encourages people not to use and waste food, and it encourages the use of apples, particularly at this time of the year, and involve people in thinking more about how we are best using the resources we've got here.
The public have been able to pop in and see for themselves what exactly ACC are doing in the local high street.
Oh, they're fascinated by the fact that the apples that they see around and that the apple juice that they are consuming in little samples is so much fresher and more pleasant than the processed juice that they're buying in bottles with all the additives that go into them. They can't believe that it's real apple. The juice in the bottles is pasteurised through our pasteurising equipment, and then people who have hired equipment can then share out that throughout the year. We are in a time of climate change, and how are we to make sure that we're playing our part in making use of our resources wisely and effectively, and not seeing things go to waste.
To Leeds next, and we revisit a special event that shone brightly in a previous episode of Digital Nation featured last year. Light Night is in its 13th year, and they're still lighting up the city in the most amazing ways. Made in Leeds gave us the lowdown on the North England Glow Town.
Light Night has been here for 12 years now, but it's the first time in history that Leeds Dock has got involved, and we're going to find out very shortly what is going on just behind. But before, let's speak to Councillor Judith Blake.
fantastic annual event now, 12 years, and two nights this year. You know, it shows the success. And just behind us, you know, the families coming in, kids coming in, everybody feeling that the streets of Leeds are theirs, and just the ability to wander around and find things they don't even know are happening. But dance, the street entertainment, obviously great light installations, but just a fabulous night. And we're so grateful for all the businesses, all the sponsors, the people who have contributed to make this possible, and really celebrate all that's good about Leeds.
I teased you earlier with something that was going on just behind me here, and I'm here with the fella that's behind it all. Anthony, what are you trying to do with this behind me here?
Well, basically, I'm trying to create immersive experiences. So I'm trying to put people within virtual spaces. So there's 6,000 points of light there that are all individually controlled, and what they do together is they create virtual spaces, virtual form, virtual movement in physical space.
Here we go. So I'm about to experience this digital experience here at Leeds Dock 4 Light Night. Got my headphones on. Let's go. Oh, it's started again. I think that's just come to the end. That's amazing. So it's kind of a mixture of sounds while seeing the lights, and the lights complement the sounds that you're hearing in your headset. And you looked around and you saw all the people just smiling. There was children, people who have families, loved ones, friends, just all embracing it. It is about interactivity, and that's exactly what you saw here as it was going on. And people just enjoyed it. Amazing.
And that brings us to the end of part 1. So to our weekly question. In which university city did author Colin Dexter base his famous character Inspector Morse? Was it A. Cambridge, B. Durham, or C. Oxford? Get your cap and gown ready and we'll give you the answer when we return after the break. Welcome back to Digital Nation. Now, before the break, we asked you, in which university city did author Colin Dexter base his famous character Inspector Morse? And the answer is C. Oxford. In the TV series, Inspector Morse was played by actor John Thor, with the character eventually dying of a heart attack in The Remorseful Day in 1999. Back in the 1920s, an exciting new orchestra transformed the jazz music scene in London. 27 musicians and 19 vocalists brought black music to the attention of the post-war public. Sadly, 9 of the members died when the ship in which they were travelling sank off the coast of Scotland.
The Southern Syncopated Orchestra were a phenomenon. The energy, the mixture of styles and people in the group coming from parts of Africa, the West Indies, the Americas, and the United States. It had a huge impact on British audiences, because this burgeoning music that was happening called jazz was a part of this presentation that this group that had 27 musicians and 19 vocalists presented. So it was something very different. It was energetic, it was life-affirming and very positive, which was all the more poignant straight after the Great War.
The important aspect of the success of the Syncopated Orchestra in England was the country was jaded. 4.5 years of warfare. They were tired. The average British person was tired, they wanted change. They didn't go to the extremes of the Russians and the revolutions or street fighting as in Berlin and Munich and so on. And suddenly there's a group of black people singing, dancing, playing.
When the ship that they were on sank and the loss of those 9 members, then it just knocked the stuffing out of them. Even though they brought in more recruits, that was the beginning of the end for the orchestra, sadly.
It's almost impossible to avoid the images of war-torn Syria and in particular Aleppo. One 26-year-old pharmacy student whose home was bombed during the fighting has managed to flee and resettle in the UK. Now studying for her master's degree at the University of East Anglia, Mustard TV spoke to the young woman and heard her story.
3 years into her pharmacy degree at the University of Aleppo, Inanna Alisaf's life changed forever with the outbreak of war in Syria.
Can you imagine that you wake up every day, you have to inspect to know if you can go to the university or not, because you wake up and you can smell dead bodies right next to your house.
One day, Inanna returned from university to find her home had been shelled. Terrorists were laying siege to the city. She had no choice but to flee, but despite the carnage, she returned every semester for the next 2 years.
I fought with my parents. They told me, take your passport. We don't encourage you to go there. We're not going to send you to death. But I was very determined. I really wanted to do this. I told them I would rather die than destroy my life. The shelling and the shooting and the bombing was very intense in that area. So it was very difficult to stay there and do my degree, but I had the determination. I said I need to do it.
Inanna was fortunate. She won a scholarship at the UEA to study molecular medicine. She's now safe in Norwich, but her mind's never far from Aleppo and the dangers facing her friends and relatives every day.
It's heartbreaking because you can't do anything about it but grieve.
Inanna's now planning to study for a PhD and support the UEA's work researching breast cancer. In 2013, Inanna married her husband Mohammed in a war zone. Today, they're adapting to life in Norwich. He's learning English while she's a freelance translator. Soon, though, she hopes to be back in the lab, supporting research in their adopted city, until they can return to the war-torn one they call home.
I want to be part in rebuilding my country.
Did you ever wonder where that tube of silicon sealant came from? Here's Creative Kingdom to tell you.
In 1897, a bloke from Manchester called Dr. Frederick Kipping moved to Nottingham to work as a chemistry professor at the university and spent 47 years of his life there, crafting away on the development of a synthetic compound called silicone. By the 1940s, it was that popular as a sealant, an adhesive, and an engine lubricant that one of the top scientists in the world told him, "You know what, Mr. Kipping, it was you and Churchill that won World War II. And Kipping said, "Oh, why bring Churchill into it?" Because he was a bit cocky. Nowadays, thanks to Frederick, you can find silicone all over the place. In medicines, in your kit and drawers, in your shampoos, in your car, and, other things we'd rather not mention. Because when it comes to creativity, innovation, and being energetic with synthetics, it's not mint.
In Manchester, a local artist has been hard at work, creating a mural in a shopping mall to celebrate the city's medal-winning Olympians. In order to get it complete in time for the celebrations, he worked night and day to complete the giant roadmap, depicting each individual sportsperson and the sport they represent.
The giant mural sits in pride of place at one of the busiest entrances to Manchester's Arndale Centre. The centre has teamed up with local artist David G to illustrate a giant mural celebrating over 70 Made in Manchester medals at Rio 2016.
So I kind of put together an idea in my head of placing them on a map where they kind of lived, trained, were born.
There was plenty of medals on show at the grand unveiling. Jodie Cundy, MBE, won 2 Paralympic gold medals and broke a world record at Rio.
Just looking at this artwork, you can just see the amount of names that are on here, and from the various different sports. It's not just like the cycling, which everybody associates with Manchester. There's hockey, archery, swimming on there, so there's lots of different sports all represented, and both Olympic and Paralympic sports as well. It's not just kind of one kind of discipline that's kind of covered.
Cyclist Megan Gelia, who only 3 years ago suffered a brain hemorrhage, won Team GB's first Paralympic gold of the Games.
Oh, the journey has been a massive spiral of twists and turns, highs and lows all the way through. You know, I still get highs and lows now, which is to be expected. But to go from just surviving a stroke, you know, nearly dying on the table and, you know, with my head cut open, you know, I can't complain with where I'm at now.
David worked throughout the night to craft this 10-metre by 2-metre masterpiece in time for the grand unveiling.
We head to Havant next, where we discover the origins of one of the most iconic toys of the 50s. The slot car racing game Scalextric was invented there in 1956, and although now made overseas, it's still going strong today. Some of the original models are now on display under the watchful eye of the original assistant chief designer.
The thrill of the race as you slide round one corner, only to spin off at the next. This fantastic toy gives you all the buzz of a racing circuit, but from the comfort of your living room. Scalextric has been delighting children of all ages since the late 50s. But how many of you knew that it was first produced in Havant?
Well, I've been a collector for 25 years. I love Scalextric. This is all about Scalextric and trying to share it with the wider public. It was invented in Havant in 1956 and first sold in 1957. I mean, Scalextric is a long-standing brand which has gone through a lot of ups and downs over the years, changes of ownerships, and it was when the parent company, Triang, fell upon hard times in 1970 that they had to consolidate production with the railway factory. I love the 60s stuff, in other words, the stuff that was made in Havant. Just the quality of it and the design of it for a 1960s toy was just phenomenal, really.
Well, I was the assistant chief designer, so from about 64 to 68. So I suppose those were the golden years, as they refer to them as. They are a part of motoring. I mean, they're just the other end of the scale, and that's why it's a brilliant thing that scale is part of the name. But it's such an iconic toy. It's always going to be there. We're very, very proud to have been part of it right from the start. It's a brilliant toy. It's competitive. It's a good base for an argument, and I hope it continues for many, many more years.
Well, although production has now moved overseas, Havant is still proud to have played a part in the history of this very British invention.
One of Birmingham's most beautiful buildings is discreetly hidden away off a busy main road, minutes from the city centre. Created by John Henry Newman and visited by the Pope in 2010, the Oratory was recently opened up to the public as part of Birmingham's Heritage Week. Big Centre TV got the chance to see the ornate Baroque interior.
Little Rome in Birmingham. This is what people often say when they visit Birmingham Oratory for the first time. The stunning Baroque-style church is a real hidden gem, and usually hard to notice when you walk down the Hagley Road. As part of Birmingham Heritage Week, this beautiful building is opening its doors for guided tours, so we decided to take a look inside for ourselves.
The church itself you see in front of you was opened in 1909, and it's an unusual church because it's an example of Edwardian Baroque. So it looks like an Italian basilica on the inside. The founder of the community was Blessed John Henry Newman. He had been an Anglican priest and academic who became a Catholic, was received into the Catholic Church, and then went to Italy, where he was ordained a priest and came to know the community which we belong to here, called the Oratory of St. Philip Neri, which he brought to Birmingham. There is an alabaster and copper designed baptistry where baptisms happen. It's very interesting. And of course the high altar.
Most people are quite surprised because it's quite a hidden gem, really. And when they do actually go in and they find that actually they've stumbled upon a little bit of Rome in the middle of sort of in Birmingham, they're quite baffled.
And that's all from this week's collection of clips from the UK's local TV channels. Don't forget, all the previous shows are available to watch again at bbc.co.uk/digitalnation, or you can check out the website of your own local station. So until next time, goodbye.